One major question that trailed the inauguration of President Muhammadu Buhari was about his declaration of assets. Considering President Buhari's perceived uncompromising anti-corruption posture, the big question is, what really is President Buhari's worth before his assumption of office? Welcome to Question Time. I'm Benga Ashiru. You may join in this conversation by sending us your comments on our various social media platforms showing on your screen. In an attempt to douse the raging questions and mysteries surrounding President Buhari's assets, Mr. President immediately swung into action by declaring his assets in a most confidential manner to the dismay of majority of the public, who strongly expects Mr. President to have publicly declared his assets. Though the Code of Conduct Act does not compel Mr. President to have his assets declared publicly, neither does the law restrict him from publicly declaring his assets. Another question is whether President Buhari would submit to the national interest by respecting the wishes of majority of Nigerians. Now, in a bid to set the record straight, we got to the Code of Conduct Bureau in Abuja, where we met with the chairman, Mr. Saba. It says the Code of Conduct Bureau will abide with due process in handling the declaration and screening of Mr. President and other public officers' assets. Mr. Saba, thank you very much for joining us on this episode of Question Time.
Thank you for having me.
Now, you must have had some turbulent times being in the eye of the storm with the entire nation's attention on Mr. President's asset declaration. So what has been your experience so far?
Well, you see, we are not completely new to this because administrations come and go, and so we are used to welcoming new administrations. It's not particularly taxing in the sense that we were ready for what we are having, the flocking in of the members of the National Assembly, and very shortly too we'll have the ministers coming in and other advisors to the government. So in all, it has been a pleasant experience. The staff are coping with the influx of legislators. That is almost virtually over now, except for the spillover of those who, for one reason or another, could not be in the National Assembly at this time.
In meeting up with the expectations of the Code of Conduct Act now, is he expected to declare his asset publicly, or is this asset expected to be made public by the Code of Conduct Bureau?
Well, let me first of all answer the first question. Yes, he is expected to feel he's supposed to make a written declaration to the Code of Conduct Bureau on his properties, assets, and liabilities. That is expected of him even before he takes the oath of allegiance and the oath of office, including the Vice President. Now, to your second question, yes, he has the option to make it public if he wants to make it public, but nothing compels him to make it public. In fact, there is no rule that makes it mandatory that it should be made public.
Now, if you are withholding information regarding Mr. President's assets, now what happens to the principle of transparency in public service?
Well, let me put it this way. You see, the Part 1 to the 5th schedule of the 1999 Constitution as amended, paragraph 11, says every public officer shall within 3 months after the coming into effect of the Code of Conduct or after taking office, make a written declaration to the Code of Conduct Bureau and ensure that all his properties, all his assets, all his liabilities are declared to the Code of Conduct Bureau, including that of his spouse, except where the spouse is a public officer, and his children who are married but under the age of 18. He has to declare that. Now, by the same token, Part 1 to the 3rd schedule of the same 1999 Constitution as amended, paragraph 3C, provides that the Code of Conduct Bureau has the power to take custody of every asset declaration and to make it available to any Nigerian, any citizen of Nigeria who wants to have access to it on such terms and conditions as the National Assembly will prescribe. To date, the National Assembly has not prescribed anything, which means the Code of Conduct Bureau is the only legal agency that takes custody of all such declarations, and it cannot make it public. Only the individual himself can make it public.
Does that suggest in any way that your hands are tied in meeting up with public expectations in carrying out your role as the Chairman Code of Conduct Bureau?
I will not put it that way. I look at that as a constraint of the law. And the constraint of the law does not mean that there are no other ways by which transparency and accountability can be brought about. Even the fact that you have filled that form, okay, and you will have your profile, your financial profile is with us. The fact that we are going to verify, we are going to have a conference verification with you after you've declared, and later on have a field verification, says volumes.
Could you tell us the exact value of Mr. President's assets?
That means you want me to disclose to you what he has declared to Code of Conduct Bureau in secret. I don't have such power. Only Mr. President himself can make it public, which he has said he is going to do within the next 100 days in office after verification. I think that he has made a statement on.
Are you not violating the Freedom of Information Act by withholding some of this information that are of value to the public?
Very good question. That has been a recurring question and a recurring demand from the civil society organizations, private individuals, legal firms that write in. On an average, we get letters up to 6 requests in a day. But we are not, because I have just told you the provisions of Part 1 to the 5th schedule and the provisions of Part 1 to the 3rd schedule. And since the Constitution is superior to the Freedom of Information Act, that one is just an act of Parliament. This one is a law, and the Constitution is superior to the Act.
You may join in this conversation by sending us your comments on our various social media platforms showing on your screen. Is the Freedom of Information Act not being violated by not disclosing such a vital information that is of public interest about the President's assets? Find out from the Chairman Code of Conduct Bureau when we return.